everybody, thank you so much for coming back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about Seven. And as usual, as you can tell from the thumbnail and the title, I am joined in this video by Jacob Martin. This is actually the first time he's going to be in one of these collabs with me, so I'm really happy to have him in this video. Jacob is actually one of the first people here on YouTube that actually started supporting my channel. When the channel first started, I had a moment where I got a lot of views and I got a lot of subscribers really quickly, and that was all thanks to a lot of friends and family who ended up supporting the channel, which I'm incredibly grateful for. And then as usual, you know, when stuff like that happens at the beginning, it starts to die down when those people who are close to you and see you often don't necessarily watch your content all the time, which is fine. I knew that, you know, when it started this channel, the people that I was really going to want to connect with were the people who didn't know me personally and the people who really love movies, which has definitely happened at this point. But the first name that I remember seeing in the comment section continuously on multiple videos that I did not personally know was Jacob Martin. And yeah, Jacob has a channel where he reviews movies, does commentaries, and all kinds of various different things on his channel. He has a lot of love and passion, and he has a consistent flow of content coming out on his channel. And yeah, I've been supporting his channel for a while. It's been great to see the growth on his channel, and he's been supporting my channel since the very beginning. We started around the exact same time. So yeah, I'm super happy to finally have Jacob in one of these videos, and we're gonna talk about Seven. So Seven is directed by David Fischer, who has also directed films like Zodiac as well as The Social Network. He's a really great director, and I really enjoy a lot of his films. And this film stars people like Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman, Gwyneth Paltrow, as well as people like Kevin Spacey. And on an overall level, what do I think about this movie? I like it. It's a good movie. I think it's a solid crime film that I think has a lot of tension. I really enjoy the tone of this film. The performances are really solid, and it also gave us this really iconic line.
What's in the box? What's in the fucking box?
On an overall level, I can't say this is a film that I'm absolutely in love with going back and rewatching it. It's definitely iconic for its time, and I remember the place it had in pop culture when it came out, and it's just a film that I always just kind of have always had a positive mindset about. But going back and rewatching it, it was a little bit slower than I expected or remembered, but really for the most part I could say that this is a good time. This is a really well acted crime thriller that has a lot of really great things going on for it, and I think there's some really great moments with these characters and this whole premise. So without getting too deep into spoilers, this film centers on two detectives that are played by Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. It focuses more on Morgan Freeman's characters, but there's a, you know, a pretty balanced amount of time with both characters. And yeah, there are these two detectives that are working on this case where there's a serial killer who is doing different killings based on the 7 deadly sins. You know, you have gluttony, you have lust, you have the sloth, and you have all these various different sins that are like the big ones. And yeah, he's creating his kills around this thing. He's picking people who maybe a fat person who is gluttonous, and he's forcing them to eat, and that's how he's killing them. And so he's using these different 7 deadly sins in order to do his kills to people that he feels deserves it. And yeah, right out of the gate, it's an interesting concept. It's an interesting serial killer type of thing. I really enjoy what David Fincher did with this film on a tonal level. I think it's really well acted. It has some really great moments as far as Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman. I really enjoy their chemistry here, and it's nice to go back and see younger versions of these actors. Of course, Morgan Freeman, you know, the joke is that he's kind of looked the same for many years. But yeah, on an overall level, it was nice to go back and see them a little bit younger. And upon rewatch, like I mentioned, it was a little slower than I expected, and there are some things about it that I find a little bit forgettable not too long after watching the movie. It's also a film that I feel goes by very quickly. I feel like it could have had a little bit more screen time, and some things could have been expanded upon a little bit more. But on an overall level, I do find it to be a solid film that is well acted and has a really interesting and fun concept. On top of that, this is kind of a spoiler, so I guess I'll just throw a mild spoiler warning. But the villain of this film is played by Kevin Spacey. He is the serial killer, and I think that he's the part that I kind of dislike the most but also like a lot. His performance is great, and I really enjoy the kind of really smart serial killer that he plays in this film. However, I feel like you don't really have time with his character. He appears in the later half of the film, and then at the very end you have screen time with him, and I really enjoy all that screen time you do have with him. But I feel like you don't really get to see his character earlier, and that's, you know, he's supposed to be shrouded in mystery, and that's kind of what they were going for. But I never really feel like you get to spend time with him as a villain. So by the time you see him, he's just a really creepy serial killer smart guy who's putting these characters in a tight situation, but you don't really have too much of an understanding of why he does things until the very end of the film. And I just feel like that's something they could have developed a little bit more. I feel like majority of the development of him as a villain are the little notes and hints that he'd leave them at their crime scenes, and this just through the killings and the tone of the film around the killings. I feel like that's where you get most of the development around him as the serial killer. But then when it comes to him being on screen, it's just more of you kind of getting a vibe of who he is. But I just feel like they're kind of underdeveloped him a little bit. Now, before I give you my final thoughts on this movie, let's go ahead and hear what Jacob had to say about this.
What's going on, YouTube? If you don't know who I am Jacob Martin. I review movies, I do TV reviews, I've occasionally done music reviews. Much like Anthony A. Perez, I'm a big fan of movies, and I started my YouTube channel to share my love for movies and cinema in general, and to respectfully share my thoughts and opinions on this platform. I started my channel, I think around the same time as Anthony A. Perez. I think he commented on one of my videos, and I've been a fan of his channel ever since I first found out about A. Perez's channel. This is the first collaboration I've ever done with Anthony A. Perez, so definitely appreciate Anthony A. Perez for giving me the opportunity to collaborate on this video with you. If you enjoy what you see, definitely take a look at my channel, where I also do movie reviews and TV reviews and other fun stuff along the way. With that said, let's get started with the review, talking about 1995's Se7en. If you go over to my channel, I have a series called the 100 Movies Bucket List. I bought this fancy poster which has 100 movies on it, and every movie that I tackle on the bucket list, I use a coin, scratch off whatever movie is represented, and I do an in-depth review over on my channel. In Se7en's case, it's going to be on A. Perez's channel, because Se7en was a part of the 100 Movies Bucket List. So if you're a fan of movies in general, definitely hop over to my channel to see more reviews in this 100 Movies Bucket List series. So without further ado, let's get started talking about Se7en. Yeah, I never like these stylized titles. Like, this just looks very weird. I don't want to call it 7 when it's titled like this. It looks like Se7en. That's the other problem I had with Fant 4-Stick. Like, why do you put a number in between the words? It's just wrong. So Se7en was released in 1995, the year I was born. It was the second movie from director David Fincher. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this, David Fincher in 1995 was not the David Fincher that we know today, who's made incredible works of cinema, and he's considered one of the great filmmakers of all time. In 1995, David Fincher only had one movie before Se7en, and that was Alien 3. Not too many people like Alien 3. A lot of people consider it one of the worst Alien films. And David Fincher had a frustrating experience with that film. That movie had a lot of studio interference. He was kind of booted out of the vision, and the studio kind of messed with the movie behind his back. And David Fincher was very frustrated about that, and he almost didn't want to make a movie again. Along came the script for Se7en. That changed his mind, and we got to see David Fincher's directing chops come in full force for the first time with this crazy thriller. Se7en stars Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman as two detectives, and they reluctantly team up together to track down this notorious serial killer who kills people based on the 7 deadly sins. Other actors who star in this movie include Gwyneth Paltrow, Richard Roundtree, whom you may know as Shaft. The movie also stars Arlie Ermy, and also Kevin Spacey. This is a movie that sticks with you no matter how many times you've seen this film. I've only seen this movie twice now, and both times I have seen Se7en, it just makes my skin crawl watching this movie, because for one, the premise is so unsettling, because you have this crazy serial killer who's murdering people based on the 7 deadly sins. So he finds people that he finds disturbing, and they fall under one of the 7 deadly sins. So thanks to this ingenious little art cover, that makes me remember all the 7 deadly sins. So you got gluttony, greed, sloth, envy, wrath, pride, and lust. So murders are done based on those 7 sins. This killer, who believes the world is so cruel and unjust, takes matters into his own hands and kills people off based on whatever sin they fall under. And so our police detectives, you got Detective Mills, played by Brad Pitt, and you got Detective Somerset, played by Morgan Freeman, who team up together to crack down this case. And I love their dynamic in this film. Brad Pitt is the rookie detective, and this is his first big case. He's a lot more optimistic and hopeful, while Morgan Freeman's character, Somerset, he is the experienced detective who's worked there for over 30 years, and he's about to retire in a couple days. He's definitely a lot more cynical and pessimistic, and he's had the experience, and they're living in New York. So New York is very crime-ridden, and there's a lot of crazy shenanigans that goes on a day-to-day basis. So he's seen a lot of crazy stuff, and seeing the two polar opposites team together, it's very entertaining, and I love seeing the characters progress and grow during this crazy case. And I enjoyed a lot of the other actors in this movie as well. Like you got Gwyneth Paltrow plays Brad Pitt's wife character. She brought an interesting dynamic to this movie as well. And then the serial killer, we later come to find out, is played by none other than Kevin Spacey. And this is one of the creepiest performances he's ever given in a film, in my opinion. I think it's a little creepier now because of the scandals that's shaken Kevin Spacey's career lately. I think that makes his performance even creepier. But Kevin Spacey, it's one of the creepiest roles he's ever played. And regardless of what you may feel about his personal life, it's still a great performance, and it's still a movie worth talking about, and because of how crazy this movie is. David Fincher's direction is so good. Like, this movie is so unsettling. Like, you see all these murders and imagery related to the 7 deadly sins, like gluttony and sloth and lust and greed. And some of these murders are so unsettling to watch, but it just keeps you engaged because, like I said, the premise of this film is so ingenious. Crazy little murder centered around the 7 deadly sins is such an interesting premise, and I think it's pulled off to the highest potential. And I'm not going to dive into spoilers in this video. I don't know what A. Perez has up his sleeve in his portion of the video, but I guess I'll find out when it's finally made. But I'm not going to give away the twist ending of 7, but I will say, if you've never seen 7, you're going to be in for an insane wild ride when you get to the final act of 7, and we get to the final twist of 7. If you know my artwork on the Blu-ray, this cool little artwork, there's a box. There's a twist involving a box, and Brad Pitt goes on full meltdown, and he starts hollering, "What's in the box? What's in the box?" And it's such an iconic moment, but as soon as that box shows up, and the contents that are inside the box, which I will not say what is in the box, because it's something, if you've never seen 7 before, it's definitely worth watching to truly find out what is in that box, because things get really crazy when the movie wraps up. When you got Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman and Kevin Spacey on full display, and you get to see their powerhouse acting abilities come full circle. And it ends on this very crazy note. Like, when I first saw the film, I was completely shocked at how this movie wrapped up. Like, it really caught me off guard. And I love the ending to this movie. It is so insane. It is so out there, but it definitely works in the overall dark, unsettling themes of the movie. And it definitely did a great job at making character arcs come full circle, even if it's not the best ending for certain characters, but it's still a fantastic movie. And David Fincher's made some other good movies after 7, thanks to the success of this film. He directed Fight Club, which is such an interesting, crazy experience as well. And another good movie he directed is The Social Network. There's a few others that I've never seen before, but those are all David Fincher movies that I do recommend. But of the ones I've seen, 7 is probably still my favorite because of the premise. I think the premise is just so brilliant, and it's executed so well. It's so unsettling throughout. The film is definitely a disturbing watch, and definitely not one I'd recommend if you have a weak stomach. But it's still a great experience. I love the performances in this film. David Fincher's direction is top-notch. And then the final twist of this film, I think, elevates the material so well, and it's definitely one of those unforgettable movies that will always stick with you because of how crazy the movie got. And Seven, I think, ranks as one of my favorite modern thrillers because I'm a big fan of the thriller genre with like Alfred Hitchcock especially. And I love seeing modern thrillers that take what Alfred Hitchcock did so well in the past, elevate it up for the modern filmmaking aesthetics, and you get something very unsettling, creepy, very thrilling, and 100% memorable. I'm going to rate Seven a 5 out of 5 stars, and on the 100-point scale, it's going to go 100 out of 100 for me. I think this is a fantastic film. It definitely set out what it set out to do as far as genre and tone and performances and filmmaking and everything, and I think it's just a fantastic movie. Thank you, Anthony Perez, once again for suggesting we do the collaboration on Seven. I enjoyed watching this movie again. I'm not going to hog up his time anymore, so back to you, Anthony. Continue to share your thoughts on this amazing movie. Goodbye.
Again, a big thanks to Jacob for being in this video. I definitely want you guys to go down to the description box down below, give him some love. The link is right there to his channel. Again, he's got consistent movie content coming out. If you're into that kind of content, you're into the stuff that I post, you may really enjoy what Jacob has going on over there. So definitely go give him some love. And again, thank you for being in this video, Jacob. So I'll be completely honest. At this point, I don't really have a whole lot more to say. I think this is a well-acted and well-directed crime thriller that could be expanded upon more when it comes to the serial killer and the characters as an overall. The character played by Gwyneth Paltrow in this film has a really significant role in the film in the later half of the film, but it really almost doesn't really have much to do with her as an actress and her performance. Her performance is fine. I think that majority of the performances in this film are good. However, I feel like a lot of the characters in this film, a lot of the actors, aren't really given a lot for you to have something super memorable to think about when the movie's over or even weeks after you've seen the movie. Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman being the center of this film are definitely the most memorable parts of this movie. Their camaraderie, as well as the times where they don't really work well together, is definitely where it really shines when it comes to this movie. But on an overall level, I do highly recommend this movie. I think if you've never seen it before, it's definitely something cool to check out. Is it a phenomenal movie? In my opinion, no, but I do think it's very well acted. I think there's a lot about it that is really well done and that is really well executed. The sense of tone, the feeling, the vibe, especially the times when they're finding bodies and all the kills, I do think all of that stuff is really solid, but I think they don't really spend enough time developing the villain. I think that Kevin Spacey as the serial killer could have been developed a little bit more. I feel like Gwyneth Paltrow's character could have been developed a little bit more for you to care for some of the significant stuff that happens with her character in the later half of the film. I just feel like also the movie just kind of ends, you know, it kind of leaves you not necessarily in a sad place, but it kind of just leaves you in a place where it's like, all right, well, I understand what happened, but I'm not necessarily in love with everything that happened, and it doesn't really feel like the most satisfying ending. And I don't think films necessarily need to have a satisfying ending. I'm totally okay with films that end on a sadder note. But yeah, I just kind of feel like the movie just kind of ends and it just feels like, hey, that was a good time, that was a solid movie, but it wasn't necessarily something mind-blowing. So yeah, guys, that's just my thoughts on this movie. Maybe you love this movie, maybe you think this movie is a drag. I definitely want to hear what you guys have to say. Hit that like button down below if you enjoyed this video, and let me know what you thought down below. What are your thoughts on this movie? Who's your favorite performer in this movie? Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Answer any or all of those questions. And as usual, guys, I will see each and every single one of you in the next video. Bye-bye.